Another large severe weather event will be coming to the United States today, and this is bound to bring even more damaging winds, large hail, and a few tornadoes anywhere from the upper Midwest all the way back into the southern plains. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly where you can expect severe weather, how high the risk will be in your location, in addition to what the weather will be past today, as we are going to be watching for a complete weather pattern change across a large chunk of the United States. But we're going to begin first with what the severe weather outlook is for today and kind of break it down in terms of timing, in addition to where the greatest risk of severe weather will be. And you'll notice that there is a couple of different areas for the greatest concern for severe weather. We have a large slight risk of severe weather from Kansas City back into parts of Minnesota. We also have a slight risk back over in the southern plains back into the lower Mississippi Valley, where we will be watching for a mesoscale convective system to rip across this region this morning into the early afternoon hours, with damaging winds and isolated large hail being the main concern, and maybe a brief spin up. Back over in the northern slight risk from Kansas City back through Minnesota, we'll be watching for a line of storms to develop later today. This looks like it'll bring some damaging winds and maybe a couple of tornadoes, but overall it shouldn't be a widespread threat for damaging winds. But definitely make sure that you're hatching down trampolines and securing loose lawn items. In terms of the large hail threat for today, it's actually the greatest concern if you're back over in southern Oklahoma or right along the Red River Valley. But I do want to point out that this is another conditional risk for severe weather. We had a similar situation like this yesterday in the Panhandle in southwest Oklahoma, where a few storms initiated, but they never really got going. We're going to have that same sort of situation today, I think, where there will be a chance for a storm, and if it forms, it could produce some relatively large hail and maybe even a tornado. But really, it's going to be, again, another situation where it may or may not happen, and that threat is going to be later today, probably sometime between about 5 and 8 o'clock. So that's the time that you want to stay weather aware there. The damaging wind concern is really the main threat across both slight risks for severe weather, as we are talking about linear lines of storms. Those are usually producing more of a wind threat. The tornado threat for today, it's very low. There's two areas that we're watching for a 2% tornado risk. This one, again, is conditional. The one back over in Iowa, Missouri, and as well as even into Kansas, I'm not really too confident that we're going to see much there. Maybe a brief tornado or two. We might go live, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel, but the chances of that still look relatively low. And then once we go into Wacky Weather Wednesday, we do actually now have officially a marginal threat for severe weather in the Ohio Valley. Initially, there was no risk at all for Wednesday, but they have at least added a small marginal threat for some gusty winds and maybe even a little bit of hail. So here's the timing for severe weather, beginning with the southern plains threat this morning. Notice we have this large mesoscale convective system that's ongoing across parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and even into Arkansas. What's very interesting on the HRRR reflectivity is it almost looks like an arrow that's pointing to the southeast, which in fact, that is what's going to be happening this morning. This is going to continue to push southeast over the next several hours. Eventually by lunchtime, this will be moving into Louisiana, right near the Mississippi River, where more damaging winds will be really the main concern. This afternoon, those storms move into central Mississippi right around 2 to 3 o'clock and into parts of central and southern Louisiana, which once again, damaging winds is the main threat. I'm not expecting a tornado risk this far down to the south. We could get a brief spin up, but it's a very, very low chance. Once we get closer to around sunset tonight, those storms are moving into parts of Alabama and southern Mississippi, where that line of storms will begin to weaken. Now, once we get closer to late this evening, we could see another mesoscale convective system develop back over in Oklahoma, and if this does happen, we are talking about yet again another line of storms overnight tonight going into parts of Texas, Arkansas, and as well as even North Texas, which again, we just saw one, and we saw one yesterday too, and we might see another one late tonight. It's just madness at this point when it comes to these mesoscale convective systems. By Wednesday morning, this will weaken as it goes into Louisiana and East Texas, and if this does end up happening, we could even see a small marginal threat of severe weather down there for wind, and then by the afternoon hours, some more sporadic thunderstorm activity would be possible. Here's that conditional tornado risk for tonight. Notice the tornado parameter values are actually quite high. With that said, we don't have a whole lot of shear. We would really need a discrete supercell there for something to really happen. When it comes to like a strong tornado or something like that, I really don't expect that, but we could see an isolated tornado there sometime during the late afternoon into the early evening hours. Back over in the Midwest for today, showers will continue this morning, isolated thunderstorms during the afternoon. We'll have a linear line of storms developing right around 4 to 5 o'clock across Minnesota and Iowa. Iowa, where damaging winds is again the main concern. Anything back over in areas like Missouri or even near Kansas City that can remain relatively discreet could produce an isolated tornado threat sometime between about 4 and 8 o'clock tonight. Once we get closer to about 9-10 o'clock, those storms are moving into parts of eastern Missouri and into Illinois, where overall the severe weather threat will begin to dwindle. And then as we go into Wednesday morning, that threat of severe weather is pretty low, with some sporadic thunderstorms out there in Ohio that could produce some isolated large hail damaging winds and maybe some sort of brief tornado risk. And here's over in areas like Kansas, again, some cells forming this afternoon with thunderstorms, mainly with hail and wind. Once we go into the evening hours, that line pushes across Missouri. Overnight, maybe some showers near Joplin and as well Springfield, but overall the risk for severe weather should be pretty low over that direction. And as we go into Wednesday, things are drying out, at least across the Central Plains. And I also wanted to show you the significant tornado parameter values, just to give you an idea of how low today's tornado risk is back over in parts of the Central Plains. There are very limited spots here that even have values near 1. So overall, the tornado threat should be very low. It's not something I would be panicking about or being very concerned about. Just make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place just in case you are under a tornado warning later today, which again is a relatively low risk. Now we can blame this low pressure system for the severe weather. We have a penetrating jet stream here across the northern plains, a pretty definitive jet streak as well. And this is what's going to continue to bring these events of mesoscale convective systems and such, at least for the next couple of days. Once we go into Thursday into Friday, though, this low pressure system becomes more of a bowling ball across parts of the Midwest and even back into the Northeast, where there will continue to be plenty of showers and maybe even some thunderstorms in New England. This jet stream will remain strong across the Midwest, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot overall for the weather pattern as we go into the weekend. Once we go into next week, this low pressure system will probably just be hanging around across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, so that should keep many areas at least less active across the Great Plains for the beginning of next week. It might start to get a bit more active as we go later into the week, but things remain very uncertain anytime past Monday of next week in terms of what the weather pattern will be. We could see some sort of a mega block pattern develop again, where another troughing feature develops here over on the East Coast and keeps things quiet. We also could see a couple of troughs come over the Rocky Mountains that produce more significant severe weather. But either way, right now, it's just kind of a question mark. I don't see any big severe weather outbreaks next week right now, but that obviously could change as we are in 2024. Here's what the future radar looks like for the next few days. Showers and thunderstorms today will continue. By tomorrow, that trough will start to bring more showers and thunderstorms to the Ohio Valley and as well as the Dixie Alley. By Thursday, that trough will bring more showers and thunderstorms to the East Coast. Look at Texas, kind of calming down maybe for Thursday, so some good news there on tossing trampolines on tall trees Thursday. Once we go into Friday, those showers and storms continue to spin back over in the Northeast. By the time we go into Saturday, Sunday, some thunderstorms possible in the southern plains, but just nothing super organized by the looks of it. By the time we go into next week, things become very uncertain, but overall, it looks really, really quiet for a large chunk of next week. And I do want to say, for the first time in over 4 years, I will be going on a vacation, which I am not going to have any live streams anywhere from June 8th until June 14th or so, approximately. That's the time frame. So first vacation I've had literally in over 4 years. I'm really excited about that. Getting a little bit of a mental break from the weather as it's been really crazy recently. So obviously make sure you subscribe to the channel. I might have a video or two during that break if something really pops up, but right now it looks pretty unlikely for the time being. And the last thing I want to mention before this video ends is that we have been doing members only streams, and this is Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? We're going to do another stream like this here in the near future for members only, so if you want to check this out, click the join button down below. Honestly, you will not regret it. These are hilarious. We did it once and we did it last night. It was so funny. Highly recommend. I think any member can vouch for that. So become a member, check these out, and thank you guys so much for watching.